Luna's world had been disintegrating for weeks, with each thread of her meticulously crafted facade falling through her fingers like sand. The once sweet intern at Forrester Creations, known for her charm and ambition, had exposed a darkness that stunned even the most seasoned members of Los Angeles's elite fashion circles. Her plunge into chaos had been quick, propelled by a lifetime of hatred, hidden secrets, and a frantic desire to control her own story. By the time the events of September 5th unfolded, Luna Nozawa had become a terrifying figure, her actions creating a trail of carnage that no one could have predicted. The revelation that she was not only a manipulator but also a cold-blooded killer had broken the lives of people around her, and now, as she came face to face with her aunt, Dr. Lee Finnegan, the tension in the air was evident. As the cops moved in, Luna spoke 5 words that would leave an indelible impact on Lee and resonate across the Forrester and Spencer families. The day began with a frenzy of activity at Luna's old apartment, which had once been a haven but now served as the stage for her final stand. Lee and her son John Finn Finnegan had arrived with a one goal, to rescue Steffi Forrester, whom Luna had kidnapped and imprisoned in a cage, a horrifying monument to her deteriorating mentality. The flat was barely lighted, the air heavy with treachery and terror. Steffi, trapped and desperate, had become the latest victim of Luna's machinations, her life hanging in the balance as Luna's intentions became more unpredictable. Finn, motivated by his love for his wife, had pieced together the clues to Luna's misdeeds with the clarity that only a man battling for his family possessed. However, Lee was slow to accept the truth about her niece. For so long, she had been Luna's protector, defending her from others' suspicions, unable to reconcile the gentle girl she once knew with the monster she had become. Luna's eyes widened as Finn and Lee came into the flat, a look of dread and defiance lighting over her face. She had been cornered, her well-planned strategy breaking beneath the weight of Finn's determination and Lee's hesitant recognition. Steffi's muted cries from the cage reverberated in the background, a disturbing reminder of the risks. Luna, recognizing the game was over, dashed for the door, her actions furious yet planned. She was no match for Lee, whose years of hard work as a doctor had cultivated a ferocious drive and astonishing physical power. Lee pursued her niece with the pace of a woman half her age, her heart racing not just from the chase but also from the treachery that drove it. Luna's escape attempt was unsuccessful. Lee apprehended her, holding her with a grip that conveyed both authority and sorrow. The police, alerted by Lee's previous call, were already on their way, their sirens becoming more audible in the distance. The younger woman's serenity snapped as Lee pinned Luna's arms behind her back. Her visage, once a mask of deliberate innocence, had transformed into something raw and nasty. She turned her head, her eyes locked on Lee's with a venom that seemed to burn through the space between them. "You betrayed me, you worthless traitor." Luna spat, her voice low and guttural, each word laced with anger. The 5 words struck Lee like a physical blow, their impact heightened by the circumstances of their strained relationship. To Luna, Lee's choice to contact the police was more than just an act of justice. It was a personal betrayal, the final severance of the bond they had previously had. To Lee, their comments confirmed the loss of her niece, a child devoured by her own darkness. Lee's breath froze in her throat, but she held her position, her grip on Luna firm. The accusation stung, not because it was accurate, but because it revealed the extent of Luna's delusion. Lee had spent months defending Luna, even as evidence of her misdeeds accumulated. She had held out hope that her niece could be saved, that the girl who had once looked up to her with big, trusting eyes was still somewhere beneath the surface. But Luna's remarks destroyed the illusion. They were a declaration of war, a rejection of everything Lee had offered her, including love, guidance, and a second opportunity. The weight of those 5 words, "You betrayed me, you worthless traitor," hung in the air, proof to their irreparable rift. The cops arrived shortly later, their heavy footsteps ringing throughout the room as they hauled Luna into jail. Her defiant yells filled the room, contrasting sharply with Lee's calm resolve. Finn, meanwhile, had hurried to Steffi's aid, liberating her from the cage and encircling her in a passionate embrace. The reunion was bittersweet, overshadowed by the chaos Luna had created. As the officers carried Luna away in handcuffs, her eyes never left Lee, burning with a fury that vowed this would not be the end. For Lee, the occasion represented a reckoning. She had phoned the police not out of spite, but because she had come to the awful realization that Luna was beyond rescuing, at least for the time being. The niece she had once loved was vanished, replaced by a woman whose deeds had wreaked havoc. The aftermath from the incident reverberated throughout the Forrester and Spencer families, with each member dealing with the implications of Luna's actions. For Bill Spencer and Katie Logan, discovering that Luna was not Bill's daughter, a deception she had perpetrated through a forged paternity test, was a relief laced with remorse. They had accepted Luna into their lives, unaware of her actual identity, and now had the terrible task of explaining to their son, Will, that the sister he had never warmed to was not family at all. Bill, in particular, grappled with his place in Luna's story. His protective instincts had clouded his judgment, making it easy for Luna to manipulate him. The recollection of her duplicity gnawed at him, reminding him of how close he had gotten to losing everything. Finn and Steffi's relationship changed dramatically as a result of the incident. The ordeal put their friendship to the test, but it also reaffirmed their dedication to one another. Finn's tireless pursuit of Steffi, refusing to stop until he found her, demonstrated the intensity of his love. However, the shadow of Luna's acts lingered. Finn couldn't ignore the guilt of his connection to her, or the knowledge that his relationship with Luna's mother, Poppy, had kicked off this series of events. Steffi, still traumatized by her confinement, battled to reconcile her ordeal with the urge to move on. Luna's 5 words to Lee were a distant echo, but they emphasized the danger she had posed, which may not be totally extinguished. Meanwhile, Lee silently carried the weight of those remarks. She returned to work at the hospital, her demeanor as calm as ever, but those closest to her saw a difference. The fire that had previously fueled her, the unwavering belief in her ability to heal things, appeared to have faded. She had always been a woman of action, a doctor who thrived on rescuing lives, but Luna's treachery had left her completely disturbed. She repeated the scene in her mind, the hatred in Luna's voice, and the charge that she was a traitor. It wasn't the words themselves that troubled her, but what they represented. Her inability to save someone she loved, the understanding that some wounds were too deep to repair. In the days that followed, the Forrester Creations staff attempted to resume normalcy, but the shadow of Luna's actions lingered large. R.J. Forrester, who had previously been captivated with Luna, was dealing with the betrayal of someone he had trusted. The knowledge of her crimes contaminated the recollection of their romance, which had previously been a bright spot in his life. Eric Forrester, the family patriarch, appealed for togetherness and encouraged his crew to focus on the future, but he couldn't ignore the scars Luna had left behind. The organization, which represents invention and resilience, felt the weight of her treachery, a reminder that even the greatest stars can fail. Poppy, Luna's mother, was perhaps the most conflicted. Her relationship with her daughter had always been difficult, distinguished by love but strained by Luna's dislike for her mother's freewheeling lifestyle. When Lee notified Poppy of Luna's incarceration, the elder woman reacted with resignation rather than surprise. She had witnessed Luna's dark side, such as her rage and manipulation, but she had chosen to think that these could be conquered. Poppy withdrew as she faced the reality of her daughter's conduct, her quiet serving as a screen against the grief of loss. Lee's meeting with Luna had also revealed a schism between the sisters, with Poppy blaming Lee for her harsh judgment, and Lee accusing Poppy of facilitating Luna's descent. As the weeks passed, Luna's fate loomed over Los Angeles like a rain cloud. Her arrest had been a victory for justice, although a hollow one. Those who knew her remembered the 5 words she had thrown at Lee, as a reminder of the wrath that had overwhelmed her. For Lee, they represented a scar, a wound that would take time to heal. She pushed herself into her profession, saving lives in the operating room, but the memory of Luna's voice haunted her, whispering of failure in her quiet moments. Finn and Steffi rebuilt their lives, their love strengthened by the difficulties they had endured, but they, too, bore the burden of Luna's betrayal. Bill and Katie concentrated on their son, hiding him from the consequences, but the reality about Luna's deeds was a shadow they couldn't completely shake. The bold and the beautiful had always been about passion, betrayal, and redemption, but Luna's actions had tested those themes to their extremes. Her 5 words to Lee, "You betrayed me, you worthless traitor," were more than an accusation. They were a proclamation of her refusal to accept responsibility, the final act of defiance in a life marked by manipulation. For those left in her wake, the goal was to move forward and repair what she had destroyed. But in a world where secrets were never kept hidden for long, the question remained. Had Luna's journey truly finished, or was this only the start of a new chapter? When the truth came out at the party, the tension was already terrible. Luna had been holding on by a thread, desperate to keep her world from collapsing, but when she overheard Lee calling the police, something inside her snapped. Lee stood there with steely determination, confident she was doing the right thing, but Luna saw it as the ultimate betrayal. Her heart hammered in her chest as the weight of embarrassment and terror slammed against her. The room was filled with whispers, faces turned toward her, judgment written in their eyes. Luna's voice cracked as she screamed 5 terrible words to Lee, steeped in pain, sorrow, and rage. They were not only a relief for her pain, but also a curse that lingered in the air long after the echoes faded. Lee's expression did not change, but she felt the pain as she realized the extent of Luna's agony. However, Luna had no comfort, no family to cling to, and no safe place to hide. The betrayal by someone who was supposed to protect her was too deep to heal soon. Tears flowed down her face as she attempted to remain upright, but her voice quivered as the anguish set in. She had lost everything in an instant. Her dignity, her peace, and possibly even her future. The party that was supposed to be a celebration had devolved into a scene of sadness, and as the cops approached, Luna's cries broke the silence. Those 5 words stayed in Lee's ears like a haunting refrain, and despite her efforts to remain calm, the agony was palpable. It was the kind of moment that neither of them would ever forget, etched into the fabric of their lives.